as the second pick in a draft that's loaded with quarterback talent. After reports that the Commanders are trading last year's starting quarterback Sam Howell to the Seahawks. Spurs also sending 4th and 6th round picks with Howell and getting 3rd and 5th round picks back.
It's been a pretty unique offseason for the Washington Commanders. As a matter of fact, I'd say it's one of the most exciting offseasons that they've had in recent memory. They made a series of moves that without a doubt will improve their team, but on top of that, they just exclaimed to the world what their plans were for the NFL draft. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we got all that out of the way, work! Look right over here, you'll see all of these wonderful human beings that have been able to make some money by playing Prize Picks. And I give away my picks for free each and every day on my Instagram at @TheFlightMike and Snapchat at FlightMikeSnap. And right now they're hooking up my subscribers fat when you use my promo code FlightMike when you sign up for Prize Picks. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I know a lot of you guys are gonna look at this video and say,
"Oh, Mike, you're a Cowboy fan. You're gonna shit all over the Washington Commanders."
because of course, if you saw my Saquon Barkley video, you know that I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of the Saquon Barkley deal to the Philadelphia Eagles, which resulted in Eagles fans thinking that it was just because I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. Which, by the way, I know we've only made like 2 moves in free agency, a pretty good move by signing Eric Kendricks, but I don't think Super Bowls are won by having incredible free agencies. In the case of the Washington Commanders, their offseason's been very up and down in the sense that they went out and they got a blue chip general manager in Adam Peters, and they fired Ron Rivera. Then they weren't able to get their head coach of choice in Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson wanted a significant amount of money to coach the Washington Commanders. And instead they settled on Dan Quinn, who is more or less kind of like Ron Rivera, at least in terms of overall resume. But I couldn't blame Dan Quinn for going to Washington because this is a remarkable opportunity. After all, this is a team with the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft, and an NFL draft that's flooded with quarterback talent, in addition to having the most cap space in NFL history. So there was a question about how they were going to use that cap space, and this is where it gets a little polarizing for Washington Commanders fans, because some fans love what the Washington Commanders did in free agency, and some people wish it was a little bit splashier. To be honest, in my case, I typically just post all over Twitter and get my delusional Cowboy fan takes out on there so I could be unbiased when I appear for you guys on this channel. So I was roasting the Commanders a little bit, even saying the Washington Commanders signing all of these players in 2024 is the equivalent to this commercial. But to be honest, I'm a huge fan of what they've done in free agency, primarily because I don't think you win Super Bowls by spending in free agency, but I do believe you could build a solid foundation for your team by spending intelligently in free agency. And in the case of the Washington Commanders, they've made some pretty intelligent decisions. For example, they signed veterans like Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, and Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is still an incredible football player who has the capability of being the captain of the Washington Commanders defense. This is very significant considering the familiarity between Bobby Wagner and Dan Quinn. And if you pay attention to all these signings, you'd notice that a lot of them are former Dan Quinn proteges. Dante Fowler Jr., Dorrance Armstrong. I guess we'll throw Tyler Biadasz in there even though he's offense. I'm a huge fan of all of the moves that the Washington Commanders made. They didn't overspend on a halfback when they signed Austin Eckler for 2 years up to $11.43 million. Should make a solid duo with Brian Robinson. They got a kicker with one of the best legs in the NFL in Brandon McManus. Tyler Biadasz was remarkable for the Dallas Cowboys last year as a center. Dorrance Armstrong was worth every single penny of that 3-year, $45 million contract. Dante Fowler Jr. was solid for us as well. And signing Marcus Mariota to a 1-year deal up to $10 million is probably so whoever they decide to bring in as a quarterback will have a mentor. Originally, we thought that there was going to be this like really cute story where the Washington Commanders were going to draft Drake May with the number 2 overall pick, and they're going to have an all North Carolina quarterback room because you also have Sam Howell there. If they wanted to do the funniest thing ever, they could have also signed Mitch Trubisky, but they wouldn't. But it seems like once they signed Marcus Mariota, there's a huge question as to what Sam Howell's fate was going to be. Now, in Sam Howell's case, a part of me is very happy for the guy because you don't really see quarterbacks that get the opportunity that he gets. I mean, this is a guy that got selected in the 5th round of the 2022 NFL draft, and he had a whole year where the Washington Commanders went all in on him, and he was placed in a pretty solid situation. I mean, the Washington Commanders brought in Eric Bieniemy, they had Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson as wide receivers, they had Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, and in the beginning of the season, Sam Howell actually looked like a player that belonged in this league. And then as the season went on, that really wasn't the case, ultimately finishing with 3,946 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, and 21 interceptions. Also led the league in sacks, 65 sacks. And so was this as a result of Sam Howell sucking or the Washington Commanders not really having an offensive line? It's really difficult to say, but I don't think Sam Howell's body of work was good enough to obviously keep him and try to move forward with him in year 2, especially when you have the number 2 overall pick. And it seems like the Washington Commanders also agreed with this, because according to Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, the Washington Commanders are sending last year's starter Sam Howell to the Seattle Seahawks in a pick swap per sources. I honestly am a huge fan of this trade. The Seahawks receive Sam Howell, a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick, and the Washington Commanders upgrade those picks to a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick. So the Seattle Seahawks lost Drew Lock earlier this year. So this is just so they could have other options moving forward if Geno Smith gets injured. I think Sam Howell is destined to be a backup in this league, and honestly, that's not a bad gig. A lot of people tend to forget that being a backup quarterback in the NFL is one of the sweetest jobs that you could ever have. I mean, Marcus Mariota is literally getting paid $10 million to ride the bench this year. That's insane. He just has to hold a clipboard all year long and just be a cheerleader, and he gets paid $10 million. So I'm happy for Sam Howell. I think this is a good opportunity for him. Who knows, maybe he is able to show some stuff and find a nice role for himself in the NFL. At the end of the day, that's what all these players are gunning for. As for the Washington Commanders, their plan is very simple. We don't know if the plan is to draft Drake May, draft Jaden Daniels, trade all the way down to like number 10 and maybe select Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy, or trade up to the number 1 overall pick and select Caleb Williams. But what we do know is that the Washington Commanders most definitely want a brand new quarterback under center next year. Makes a lot of sense. I say it each and every single time we make a video on this channel and this situation arises. Whenever you have a new front office, a new head coach, and especially a new ownership group taking over and trying to change the culture, you can expect a brand new quarterback that is handpicked by that front office, by that head coach, and by ownership. Now, how involved ownership gets in these decisions usually is the difference maker between winning multiple Super Bowls or potentially turning out like a post-1996 Jerry Jones, where you go mad with power thinking that you're the reason that you're winning the Super Bowls, and then of course not winning a Super Bowl in almost 3 decades. You have the Robert Krafts of ownership, and then you have the David Teppers of ownership. It's going to be really interesting to see which one Josh Harris is. He's built an all-world staff so far with Adam Peters and Bob Myers and Dan Quinn, and they're doing a remarkable job getting assets for their ex-players. They're doing a great job in free agency as well. I know people don't believe me when I say that, but I don't think it's always wise to sign foreign players to 4-year, $92 million contracts, particularly if you could have signed AJ Brown to a 4-year, $100 million contract just 2 years prior. What? Let me know in the comment section down below if you want a video on that next. Let me know if you're a Commanders fan. How do you feel about your offseason so far? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.